You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those nerds! Nerds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester.
And welcome, everybody, to the It My Cast podcast. Joining me today is Lisa Gullickson, Wife Dork.
Do you think it's funny to spit on people? Not ha-ha funny, but existentially, yes.
Also joining us today is Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
I make this look good.
And I will be your host today. I am Brian Young, the Turtle Dork. So you made a person out of another person. And welcome to the It My Cast podcast.
Oh, man, this is the problem with podcasts. This is why it should be a YouTube show. Our listeners need to see your little young Will Smith hand gestures. You nailed it.
He transformed it like it's like he split the difference between the two Smiths.
I couldn't get the watery eyes, though. I can't cry on cue like Will Smith.
Neither can young Will Smith.
Oh, they just blow glass in his eyes to get that.
So I'm your host. Disco Dork Darren Smith is in transit. He's on the road, so he won't be able to make it this week. But we will definitely keep him in our thoughts and prayers.
Oh, what happened to him? What happened?
I don't know. I just wanted to say that. He's completely fine. He's okay. He made it.
I thought
back.
you just murdered Darren. I really hope nothing tragic happens to him.
No, it just for some reason while I was saying that, that just felt like it was the next natural thing to say. I don't know.
Oh, thoughts and prayers.
Sorry, D.
Thoughts and prayers, D.
I mean, who couldn't use a couple of each? Like
Exactly.
6 of one, half
Oh,
a
my
dozen
gosh.
of the other.
So let's get into everyone's weekend dork. So Lisa, we will start with you. So how was your weekend dork this week?
She got into Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah, we did.
I mean, hey, we could talk about that on the front end of this
I
episode.
think we should just mention it a little bit because it was incredibly stressful.
Yes, it was. And we were actually talking a little bit about this off air. And the fact that our Comic-Con family all together, we did not get in.
No.
But some of our new con family that we met this prior year, Chris and Peter, if they're listening, shout out to them. Peter was able to get tickets for
Us three.
And I feel a little guilty saying that.
Somebody's the favorite.
No.
Somebody's the favorite.
Like it was weird because this was the first time in 10 years that nobody in our group, like our main group, got in.
Yeah, man.
And we got tickets because of our new ConFam members, Peter and Chris, who we met only last year.
Yeah.
And both of them got in.
Yeah, both of them got in, and none
we
of
lucked
us.
out. But now we're all like, we're doubling down our efforts for open registration because
Yeah.
I'm going to be heartbroken if the rest of our family doesn't get in.
We got to get the Woods in. We got to get, Aisha and Fatima and Miriam in. Yeah.
Got to get
it's gotta
everybody
happen.
in.
But whew, that was stressful.
It was. Like I said, and afterwards I was texting with Aisha a little bit, and we were saying like how strange that was that out of our con family, which is like what 10 plus people, that
It's
nobody
16 now.
16 people, and nobody from the Wood family got it. That's just absurd to me.
I'm thinking it's vast conspiracy. Off air, Brad and Brian are saying there's something supernatural going on. There's some bad mojo somewhere.
It's because Darren broke the chain.
That's right.
And it's because Scott Wood broke the chain.
Scott Wood is in China. Darren was in Tennessee on actively driving.
No, they're allowed to have lives. I haven't been there for every Comic-Con ticket purchase, right? But I think what we do need to do on the open registration day is even for the people who cannot make it, we need access to their member ID so we can put them into browsers and still use their registration.
Should we be
waiting
saying
room.
this on the air?
I think
Is that?
it should be okay.
It's all on the internet,
I'm
Lisa.
thinking that's a gray area.
No,
Believe me, I
how
can
it's done,
guarantee that there are some Comic-Con groups that are like 50, 60 people plus. And
This
they're
is
doing
part
the
of the
same.
system.
Yeah.
San Diego Comic-Con tweets out.
They created this.
Yeah.
They tell you that if you are using multiple browsers to buy for a group, be mindful of them possibly crashing in one laptop.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So because Comic-Con addresses that, they know that's part of the system. That's how this goes.
Yeah,
Right.
And so when I see people get mad about like, oh, I didn't get in, it's like, you need to get yourself a con fam. Make some friends.
Yeah, believe me, go to Comic-Con. It's easy to talk to people. We're living proof that your group can grow from 4 people from when we first came in 2011 to 16 plus.
You don't do this for a decade and not have friends to help.
Exactly. So yeah, we're in.
Yay us.
Yeah, feel a little guilty, but also kind of excited. But we will get everybody else in.
As soon as we had our tickets, like the anticipation was just like, I cannot wait until I'm at Comic-Con again. It was like just a rush.
It's my bliss zone.
Yeah, Brad was telling me about that. He was just like, when I'm at Comic-Con, I'm just 100% happy and comfortable. I'm like,
it's heaven on earth.
I wonder what that's like. I have an anxiety disorder, guys.
I'm with you on that one.
It's pretty great, guys.
It's gotta be wonderful.
You should stop having anxiety orders.
I know. I'm gonna work on that. So Lisa, your week in Dork, how was it this past week?
My week in Dork was amazing. I did watch all of the blowing glass competition show. It was riveting. Okay. But what thank you.
That thrilled Brian. He was like, okay, well, can we skip over that real quick?
It's amazing what can be made out of glass.
No, we don't care.
In a kiln.
That's not
not a kiln. They call it a glory hole.
Oh.
I know what can be made in a glory hole, Lisa.
Okay.
NSFW episode.
But what I want to, Brad,
what?
Close the hole.
Oh.
Is that, do you put a lid over it?
A cork.
That might hurt.
Pop a cork in it? Okay, I want to talk about getting to watch I Kill Giants in Winchester with comic book writer, screenwriter Joe Kelly.
Is this your first watch? Because I know they showed it at
I saw it at Lost Weekend 9. And I'm going to admit it, like the first time around, like in the context of watching it in a film festival, like I didn't hate it, I didn't love it.
Yeah, same. I agree.
Okay.
But that first watch did have a lot of, like, it created a lot of fans. Like, I Kill Giants from that day rose above a lot of the other movies for a lot of people.
A generous handful of people who had seen it at Lost Weekend 9 came back to watch it again, which is a testament to the quality of that film. Okay. I don't want to spoil stuff.
Don't spoil stuff.
But there is second watch things that really, the second time around, this movie really got me.
Knowing where the film goes makes you
care more
and understand the rules of the world that is being built in the film.
Okay.
Right. So the story is about this girl named Barbara Thorson, and she's an outcast. She has no friends at school, but she seems to have this elaborate imaginary fantasy world in which she is a giant slayer. And she goes around her little seaside neighborhood.
In Long Island.
Planting traps. She has elaborate notebooks. And a new kid at school sees what she's doing and is curious and wants to become her friend. And so Barbara allows this new friend, Sophia, into her world. But in doing so, in making a friend, it starts to expose what is the source of this fantasy world and leave her more exposed than perhaps she was ready for.
There's a dark reality engine to the mythology.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got to proceed the second viewing with a chat cast that will be coming out with Joe Kelly, and he is such a cool guy. And he talked a lot about how Barbara as a character was inspired by being a parent and being the parent of a daughter. And he he likes to say that his daughter was precocious as a little girl, really sassy.
Okay.
And he started to extrapolate, well, what would my daughter be like in certain situations? There are other kind of semi-autobiographically inspired elements to the story. And the chat cast, I'm going to say right here, is spoiler-free if you haven't seen the film.
Nice.
He was adamant that he didn't want to ruin the experience for first-time watchers.
That's great.
So be sure to check it out. We don't get to talk a lot. So he wrote the original, he originally wrote the story as a graphic novel. And as he was writing the graphic novel, he immediately started writing it into a screenplay because he lives in both worlds. He lives in the comic book world.
He's the co-creator of Ben 10, the Cartoon Network series from the early aughts.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not from.
It's because you and I are both old, Brian, and that's
True.
we didn't watch it. But
True.
yeah, Ben
It's a
10's a
thing.
big deal. It's a thing.
Okay, so I Killed Giants, was that ever published as a graphic
Yeah.
novel?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's beautiful.
It's from Image Comics.
The artist, I don't have my notes.
I can't remember either.
I think it's J.M. Ken
It's
Nimuri.
something like that.
Nimura?
Yes, yeah. Spanish author.
Okay.
But it's kind of very sketchy, kind of bubbly anime inspired.
Oh, okay.
Kind of.
It's
art.
got a cool color scale to it.
Yeah.
It's I would say it's European influence. He's clearly a Spanish artist who was raised on American comics, European comics, and probably a little manga in there too. It's a hodgepodge, but it's gorgeous looking.
Okay.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. There is even more fantasy elements to the comic that ultimately didn't transfer to the screen. So on a podcast, he talks all about that stuff. I enjoyed talking to, he was so easy to talk to. Once the mics went off, Brad and I were like, tell us about Deadpool.
Joe Kelly is one of the, when you think of Deadpool, the Deadpool that you know from film, the one that you watch in the film, with Ryan Reynolds and all that, that's not really Rob Liefeld's Deadpool. That is Joe Kelly's Deadpool. Joe Kelly is the one who gave the Merc his mouth. Okay. And that sense of humor to the character and that, acerbic nature. That is all Joe Kelly. And so, that was super cool to talk to him about what it's been like to see Deadpool go from obscurity to the biggest comic book character on the planet and everybody cosplaying all the time as that guy.
Yeah, he also wrote for Uncanny X-Men.
Oh, wow.
But by the time we were standing in the theater getting ready to do his intro, I was telling him about my family. I was like,
oh wow, okay.
I was just like, yeah, and we I was like, I'm just going to tell this guy everything about me.
So he's that comfortable to talk to.
Yeah, and
super good guy.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then Andy did an awesome intro, and then he had to skedaddle because it was his 17th anniversary with his beautiful wife.
Happy anniversary, Andy.
Happy anniversary, Andy.
And so we got to do the Q&A after, which was awesome because I got to ask all of the super needly specific and probably overly personal questions that would be spoilers in the chat cast.
And my plan was to record it and put it at the end of the chat cast, but apparently I didn't hit the record button on my iPhone.
I got to see the look on his face too when he realized I wasn't going to sell you out. I was going to be like, it was you had to be there moment.
I was so mad.
Yeah.
Happens to the best of us, man.
Oh, well. Dumb.
But the audience was wrecked by the movie.
Yeah, that was great.
Tears, one of my best friends, I couldn't articulate this to Joe Kelly properly, but my middle school best friend Amy Kellett was there.
Oh.
And so I was just like, hey, when I was in middle school, I met a new British girl and she became the friend that I made weird. And I couldn't express it to him properly, but it was that made it extra special to me, even though I was never as troubled as Barbara, thank God. And then also Donna was there, and we got a little bit of the parental perspective
So much
on
crying.
the story. So much crying.
Wow.
And what was awesome is a person came in I Kill Giants cosplay to the screening.
They did.
They had like the giant mallet,
Yeah,
hammer,
yeah.
and the rabbit ears, and the special Kowaleski pouch. Like, I was really impressed.
And for a Q&A, not to just rub salt in the wound, but it was some of the best questions that we've heard
From the audience.
And I think that was due in large part to Project Right from Shenandoah University, which is a nonprofit for teaching young writers, particularly young screenwriters.
And so they brought him in.
Yeah, so a lot of the questions were from these students, and they had been doing a whole weekend, and I think part of the weekend was getting to work with him. And
apparently before the screening, before we met up with Joe, he had spent the whole day at the university with these kids, talking screenwriting.
Oh, wow.
And so the fact that they could watch
awesome.
That's awesome.
I wish
Yeah.
I
watch
had
this
gone.
film, and they still had questions.
Yeah.
So that I felt super privileged to be there. Of course, Andy, we owe you everything. Andy Geierson, our patron saint of Alamo,
Yes.
programmer supreme.
Yes.
Also, thanks to Shenandoah University and Project Right for setting that up for us.
Very cool.
And so make sure that if you haven't seen I Kill Giants, watch that movie.
You
It's
can
amazing.
rent it right now on Amazon.
Yeah.
So do that.
Do yourself a favor. Read the comic book and read the comic book in mind that the screenplay was written at the exact same time. They were written next to each other. I find that fascinating.
One of my favorite behind the scenes stories about the production of the movie was Christopher Columbus was attached to it to direct.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they decided they couldn't make this movie for they didn't have $50 million to make the movie, and Christopher Columbus doesn't make movies that cost less than $50 million, so he became a producer on it.
Really?
That's how it was described by Joe. I thought that was kind of funny.
But he set them up with Anders Walter, who is a director from Denmark.
Yeah.
And he actually worked, Joe Kelly worked very closely with him. One of the contingencies for them developing this comic book into a film was that he did all of the writing. So script-wise, this is the purest form.
Yeah.
Obviously he got notes, and he said that all of the notes were good.
Anders is an interesting director. He won an Academy Award a couple years back for his short film Helium, which was an animated short about a little boy in hospice.
Okay.
That is very powerful.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome. Man, okay. I definitely want to go back and rewatch because I remember seeing it at Lost Weekend, and that was kind of the same. I was kind of split down the middle, but I think I'm probably due for a rewatch of this film.
You know, I think sometimes we talk a little bit about this with Joe. You watch 9 movies in a day, especially at Lost Weekend. I mean, they really cram it in. When we go to Fantastic Fest, we do 4, maybe 5. This time we decided to do a lot of 3 movie days.
Yeah.
But Andy, when he's programming Lost Weekend, he's like, enjoy these 9 movies. Get up at the crack of dawn, go home at the crack of dawn.
And I think that your brain does go into a self-preservation mode, where if it's a movie like I Kill Giants and you go I'm not into the fantasy elements, part of your brain shuts down and waits for the next movie.
Yeah.
And that's not in service to every single movie.
But again,
obviously.
that did not happen for everybody. And that's why we had such a large crowd from Lost Weekend 9 return to I Kill Giants.
Cool.
And I'm so glad that we did. 'Cause
Yeah, me
I
too.
enjoyed the movie a lot more.
Awesome.
Yeah. There's one scene where I'm why is Imogen Poots wearing a sweatshirt? She seems really underdressed. But that's literally my only complaint about the movie.
Okay. All right.
When you watch the movie, you'll understand.
So yeah, guys, definitely check that out. You can rent that now on streaming. It should be out.
Yeah, it's
Amazon.
on iTunes and Amazon and all those places.
Cool. So definitely go check that out. Anything else you had this
Unless you want to
weekend?
hear more about glass blowing.
No.
No? Okay,
No.
then I guess we will move on.
Have you ever seen someone made a human foot out of glass? It's amazing.
Ooh.
No. And no, I don't care.
Brad, how was your week indoors?
My
You
weekend
watch
work was
people's
great.
dreams shatter. No, I'm done. I'm done.
Watch people's dreams shatter.
There's a lot of breaking glass. Yes.
All right.
That was good.
It was
I like
riveting.
that.
I had a great week in Dork, like Lisa.
Okay.
What Lisa decided to negate from her week in Dork was that she watched a bunch of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I've been cranking through those films all week long.
Yeah.
And Lisa saw all of part 2 for the first time. She saw a bunch of 3, fell asleep during it. She saw a snippet of 4, did not give an F about it. She saw a bunch of 5, fell asleep during it.
6 had a lot of vomiting.
No, is that
7?
6?
I
That's
think
7.
that is 6.
No, that's 7.
Oh,
6 is Freddy's Dead, which is great.
Yeah.
You
I
really
missed
watch
that.
a lot of it.
Yeah, I straight up missed
People
that one.
don't like Freddy's Dead. They're wrong. Freddy's Dead is brilliant. It is the most cartoonish and silly of the sequels.
Yeah.
It's got Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold in cameos. Johnny Depp comes back for a cameo. It's got Breckin Meyer, Lisa Zane, Yaphet Kotto. But I think it is prime Robert Englund. Like, that's my piece de resistance of the Nightmare films.
Yeah. Which one was Dream Warriors is 3.
That's 3. That's with Lawrence Fishburne and
Okay.
Heather Langenkamp comes back. John Saxon comes back.
Is that the one in the psych ward?
Yeah. That
Okay.
one's great.
Yeah, that's a good
3
one.
is great.
I liked 3 a lot.
Yeah.
4 is interesting. 5 has the best kills, in my opinion. And then Freddy's Dead's my favorite.
What's the
It's most fun.
subtitles to 4 and 5?
4 is the Dream Master.
The Dream
And
Master,
5 is the Dream Child, where they
Okay.
explore that Freddy's the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs and all that stuff.
Okay.
There is a really interesting parallel theme to the Thai film The Pool.
Oh, yes, that is true.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah.
You can read my review of The Pool on aftermoviediner.com.
It's a pro-life movie.
Yeah, it
Lisa's
is. It's
saying.
big time.
Just like The Pool, The Dream Child is a pro-life movie.
Nice.
Okay. All right. But I don't want to talk about that too much. What I really wanted to talk about is I had an opportunity through Film School Rejects to talk to a couple of really amazing filmmakers. Caleb Deschanel, who's the cinematographer that shot The Natural and The Right Stuff. And last year he was nominated for an Academy Award for Never Look Away. And he's the cinematographer on The Lion King. And you're like, what? The Lion King's a cartoon. It's animated. Why does it need a cinematographer? Well, I talked to him, and then I also spoke to Rob Legato, who was the special effects supervisor on The Lion King. And talking to those guys really opened up what exactly The Lion King is. It's not Toy Story. They don't make it like a Pixar film where they go in and there's like one monitor and a bunch of artists drawing frame by frame, pixel by pixel, hair by hair of those lions. They shot the film. There are no cameras, but there are VR cameras, virtual reality cameras. And this is how they did it, Brian.
Okay.
And after this podcast, I want to show you the photographs of this.
Yeah.
But Jon Favreau, Caleb Deschanel, and the crew, the way their day would work is they would go onto set, and set would be a big warehouse.
Yeah.
And they would don VR goggles, and they would enter the digital realm of the Lion King. And
they would walk onto set.
Yeah.
they were like, here is Pride Rock. All right, where do we want to set up the camera? And so they're inside, like the Lawnmower Man. They are inside a virtual realm together, wearing these goggles. And they decide, all right, over by Pride Rock, there is a tree. Let's set the camera up by the tree and do a low angle. And then Jon Favreau would say, well, I like that, but if we set the shot up by that tree, I don't like that tree. Can we attribute a new tree? Let's get a new tree in there. And then the production designer says, well, if we're putting a new tree in there, I'd also like to add some rocks and some grass by it. And then the cameraman says, well, if you're adding rocks and grass by that and we're shooting from a low angle, we need that to be backlit. And we need to shoot from lower left. And that's how they decide the shots on the film.
Okay, so they're literally in a virtual world
That they have constructed.
and then they go inside that world, and then
they decide where to put the camera. And then they have not a physical camera that captures light and puts it onto film.
Yeah.
They have a VR Steadicam, or VR cameras in general, that they literally physically move through the warehouse. And as they're moving the physical VR Steadicam through the warehouse, they are going through the digital stage.
Wow. So they're going through the virtual world that they've constructed.
Yeah, and you see on set, like there's Caleb Deschanel, the cinematographer, and he is operating a Steadicam, and he's moving the VR Steadicam, and he's looking down at a monitor to see how he is dollying in on Simba.
Interesting.
It is nuts. And so talking to Caleb Deschanel, he says, like, in this film, I have all the same tools that I would if I was actually in Africa. I have dolly tracks. I can zoom in. I can zoom out. I have to, worry about lighting. The only thing is like, if I don't like the color of that sky, I have 350 skies to choose from. So we can change the color of that sky. I can move the sun around. I have control over every element. And I can put a dolly track in the clouds. And I can put a camera in the middle of a charging herd of wildebeests.
Yeah.
And I can swish pan and in a way that I could never do in a physical set.
Oh my God.
But they are literally choosing shots and shooting the movie like they would a regular film. And what's fascinating is there are extra shots. They don't do this in one take. So they have a program for the wildebeest charging, right?
Yeah.
We're going to follow this wildebeest, and I'm going to swish pan, and we're going to zoom in, and we're going to capture the wildebeest at the end.
Okay.
And when they press play on the wildebeest to charge, Caleb is still physically moving it at his speed, and he could be too slow, and he could not pan on time and capture the wildebeest, and they could be far off in the distance, and they can say, actually, that mistake makes that shot look better.
Yeah.
Let's keep that, but let's do another shot to see if we can do it the way we wanted to originally. And so there are multiple takes that are being filmed digitally.
Interesting. So how does that work with the actual actors and the characters? So
the characters, everything is animated. Simba isn't mocap. Timon is not mocap. Those are all animated characters.
okay.
But they are then programmed into these sets and then filmed, and they choose where they're going to, hit their performance. Like, I like the profile shot of this scene, but let's see what it looks like from a bird's eye view. And then they could just change the shot and do the exact same scene, same performance, but now different angle.
Wow.
And so there's actually like deleted scenes.
Man, you know what? I wonder if a lot of this stuff is going to be on the DVD or Blu-ray.
It's out now, and I really want to get my hands on it.
Because I was actually going to skip this Blu-ray, but I might now pick it up.
So, like, when Jon Favreau was out there promoting the film originally, and he was saying, like, it's not an animated film, but there's no real animals and there's no real cameras, so it's... And so when I hear that, I go, like, well, then it is an animated film.
Yeah.
But it's not being constructed through one portal. It's being constructed through multiple portals, and the variety is the same. Like, the variety of choices is the same on any other movie. You can get up in the morning, go to set with one idea, and then in talking to your production designer, your cameraman, and your cinematographer, the scene's nothing like what you thought it was.
Okay, so you're pretty much approaching this the same way as you would do a live action movie, and
Yeah, and when you read my interview, you'll see them in multiple times say, it's like any other movie. It's like any other movie.
Yeah. And it feels like it is done differently from the way you would do a traditional animated movie.
And Rob Legato worked with Jon Favreau on The Jungle Book.
Okay.
And the VR technology did not exist when they made The Jungle Book. So when you watch The Jungle Book, the CG scenes are like watching a Pixar movie, like watching Toy Story or Incredibles or whatever. They were constructed one frame at a time, one hair at a time, one pixel at a time.
Okay.
But The Lion King was shot like a movie, just digitally.
Yeah, interesting. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that.
It's crazy.
That's wild.
It's like, it certainly gave me newfound respect for the craft behind The Lion King, but also it highlights the fact that when you make a movie and you put it out, and we all think we know how that movie was made, and we were so dismissive of The Lion King.
Oh yeah.
Because we thought it was constructed with a computer like they construct an animated, like the animated original, and it really wasn't. Now, does that mean the film's better or worse?
Yeah.
No. But it is a brave new world of filmmaking.
Absolutely. And it goes to my whole thing that sometimes that I have issues with like the online community, like you say, the whole dismissal of how certain films are made, or how people think they know how a movie is made, or everything behind the scenes of a movie. And when it goes to show that you really, really don't, unless you're actually on the set, you don't know everything that goes behind what it takes to actually make that film.
Yeah.
But if you think about like how every Marvel movie nowadays, or every, whatever movie, action movie, whatever, like you see a green screen shot and you're like, that, my friends, is a green screen shot.
Yeah.
Is that going to go away? Like, are they now going to build these virtual sets, and now we're going to put Robert Downey Jr.'s virtual clone in that set? He's dead.
They can.
Not Robert Downey Jr.
They can. But I did ask Caleb Deschanel, having spent a year and a half making The Lion King and working in this realm, and he'd never done this before. Yeah. I asked him, are you excited to work with quote unquote real film again, or digital film again? And his response was, well, I did immediately following The Lion King go and I shot the pickups for Ad Astra, and that was all shot on celluloid. And he does naturally prefer the OG method because there is a level of serendipity, his word, to the process. Because when you're filming The Lion King in this method, and you can choose any color of sky you want, where the source of light is coming from, when you have God power over the frame, exactly, you miss the accidental magic. Exactly. Yeah. And when you're filming live, you don't realize, like, oh man, the way the sun hit the lens on that shot really created an amazing effect. Yeah, you don't get those happy accidents that you get in that virtual world.
So, it's funny, like, after watching every Freddy nightmare movie, and they're talking, and then we watched that 4-hour documentary. What was it called?
Never Sleep Again. Where
they're taking you film by film and kind of going through what the filming process was like. Yeah. And for like the span of the Nightmare films, they start in 1984 and they go to the 90s where it's just barely CG starts. So all of those kills practically were practical. And it seemed like a really miserable way to shoot things. Like, they're just straight up injuring teenagers and electrocuting themselves and each other.
In Nightmare 5, when they're talking about the motorcycle that eats the kid, that rips away his skin and transforms the child into like an extension of the motorcycle, which is my favorite kill in all of Nightmare on Elm Street. It was so graphic that the MPA refused. You have to trim. You have to trim. And you hear that all the time with horror movies. Like, oh, the MPA made us trim shots out. But when they trim a shot out like that, that's an entire days of work for this one dude.
Well, they would, like, somebody would build an entire animatronic robot dead version of a character, and they would just go up like, that's too gross, we can't use it.
Yeah, that one technician on Dream Warrior, he spent his entire time on that movie building this body, and then they present it to the director and they're like, that's too graphic. We're not going to use that.
We're just going to spray paint a school skeleton, like put a wig on it, like But I was thinking of from the original movie, like Johnny Depp's bed, and how they did it in a rolling room, that would be used again. And it wasn't like, it was a rolling room being rolled by human beings. It was being just lifted by people. Yeah. And for some reason they didn't think through that, like, if we're pouring dyed water, like gallons and gallons of dyed water into a rolling room,
that's electrified.
Like, they were just straight up pouring water on wires, and like one person straight up did get
and the person pouring the water was electrocuted.
And they just kept shooting.
It was electrocuted, and the gimbal on the rolling room lost control, and that's why in that shot you see the blood go down and then sideways at an angle. Interesting. So that's the serendipity, right? Yeah. It's a mistake. This guy got electrocuted for that shot.
But, like, if you're going, like, okay, we could build a rolling room and pour water all over the place, Or we can just build a virtual room.
Well, I mean, we're going to talk about Gemini Man, right? But there is a fire effect in that movie where a person is completely lit on fire.
Yeah.
And it's digital. And you compare that to the fire effect in The Thing when the monster comes storming out into the snow and it's a dude who's literally lit on fire. Which one looks cooler? Which one looks better? Well, obviously the one that nearly killed that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me though, like going to like the conversation that you had with them as far as like these virtually constructed worlds, like what you were saying, Lisa, how that could be utilized in the future with future filmmaking and stuff like that. And would you be able to bring in like real actors into those virtual worlds and stuff like that?
I think, but I also think that a version of this technology is happening on all of these movies already. You know, like when they go in, like when they are pre-vising, you know, the final Thanos battle, a version of what we just talked about was occurring. You know, and so, you know, this is just like it's technology, and with technology comes change.
It's making me think though, like how would real actors interact with the environment in that virtual world though?
Yeah, they would have to have
like because you can't have like an actor walk on Pride Rock because Pride Rock isn't physically there.
Sure.
You know?
But I think that what we're seeing is the combination of these two things, right? The VR world and the mocap performance, right? Like Thanos is, you know, that is a performance, but it is a performance that is enhanced digitally, you know.
Okay.
Implants, brain implants.
There you go.
It's all
Special
changing. It's fascinating.
Lenses.
I came away from that conversation, you know, 6 months ago, I wrote an article that was very snarky about when is animation not animation, addressing Favreau's comments during a junket. And then 6 months later, I talked to the guys who actually made this thing, and I go like, don't be such a snarky asshole, Brad. You know, like, do your research. Talk to these guys if you have the privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome, man.
So do you think all of those like virtual trees are going to just go on a hard drive somewhere?
Oh, yeah.
They're all saved?
Yeah.
I would feel so sad if I was the person who spent hours on building a tree that didn't get used.
Oh no, believe me, they'll
get used.
A lot. No, they will because
those 350 skies.
You don't want to. You want to cut down on your costs and your time and to save that stuff to be able to reuse later in other movies. Hollywood's got that down. So,
but that interview should be dropping. Hopefully, it's out there while you're listening to this, so you can go over to Film School Rejects and read my interview, and you can see the behind the scenes photos of them filming The Lion King.
That's cool, man.
They just went, Brad, do you want the behind the scenes photos?
Yes.
So cool.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's awesome. Anything else you got for this week?
No, I've rambled on enough.
Oh, alrighty. So for me, I'm just going to talk about a couple of different things. I'm going to start with something that has been out for a while, and I know you guys did a marathon of this when you guys came back from, Fantastic Fest.
So long ago.
It feels that way. It feels like it's been so long ago. But I caught a screening of Rambo Last Blood.
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah. That movie's not good at all, and I'm not going to talk long about it. But I did want to bring it up because the movie was really frustrating me. First is the fact that the script of this movie is terrible. It's absolutely horrific. So much exposition, so much stuff is being told to us instead of actually being shown to us. I get like a lot of the complaints too that people are having about having the antagonists or the villains, you know, be Mexican and you know, across the border. And for me, I'm not going to say that you can't have like Mexico as a villain.
Yeah, but why all these porno shots of the wall?
But that's the thing, and that's the thing. I think with better writing and a skilled director, like they can make that work, but the optics of this movie is just in bad taste and it's tone deaf.
If you want to have that conversation, watch Sicario.
Dude, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking Sicario, and you can have basically the same conversation that seems like they're trying to have with this movie, but failing in every area.
Oh, they're just stroking red staters with this film.
Yeah, and the people I've heard some people come out defending that it's not. And okay, if you feel that way, that's fine. But again, like, and even if that wasn't the intent of Sylvester Stallone,
I mean, Rambo films have almost always, I would say, with the exception of the first film, stroked red staters.
Okay. I haven't gone back and seen like
you should watch Rambo 3 again, man.
It's weird to watch the first film and then proceed to go through all of the films, because after watching them like that, I went so far as to say like that the existence of the following films is morally reprehensible and flies in the face of the original film.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the exact same way that I felt. I mean, it just, I don't know. It was just, to me, it was just in poor taste, and I thought it was very irresponsible because the timing of this, and you're right, it does stroke the ego of the red
it's not the ego.
yeah, you're right. And even like the final, I mean, I'm not going to give anything away if there's anything to give away about this movie, but
the
like
final scenes are all in the trailer.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the actual final moments where you hear the voiceover and where he's talking about. I mean, it almost is almost. I don't want to. Not propaganda, but it's like you're saying. He's talking about protecting this country and all these different things. Like when you see him walking up to sit on
it's the country
chair.
that dumped on you, dude, and left you as a homeless bum.
Yeah.
And,
traumatized.
Had
nothing but contempt and apathy towards you when you returned from your war.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, this movie is just extremely bad. And then outside of that, but it just doesn't feel like a Rambo movie.
Yeah, well, you know what's weird about the film for me? Like, speaking in those terms? Because, again, like, if you go and you watch Rambo 3 and you watch Rambo 4 and Rambo 2 even, like all the weird right-wing politics are in those sequels. So if we're just talking as like a straight Rambo movie, why is so much of this film not following Rambo?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. It's not. I mean, he's almost like a secondary character in this story, and I don't know. It's just, I don't even know what else to say about it, man. It's just poorly made. It's a poorly made film. The gore aspect of it. Now we've seen it in Rambo, the fourth movie, where a lot of people talk about the 50 cal is exploding, and it's a lot of fun. But then, like this movie here, it just feels like they're doing gore just for the sake of gore.
I like booby traps.
Yeah.
If you just took the end, and
I have no problem with the violence.
Sly Stallone,
the ending I like.
Blowing people up and stuff, I like that.
Honestly, the only thing that really kind of bugged me and it just felt out of tone with the character and the gore is that opening bit of violence where he pulls the guy's collarbone out.
Oh, yeah. Where it's like Saw level, like Jigsaw.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, like you're literally going in and...
I would have no problem with that if everything around the film was better.
Yeah.
It is weird how when Stallone took the helm of Rambo 4, he then turned it into like gore porn with that movie.
Yeah.
And with this, there is a little bit of that Saw, Hostel, John Wick, Chapter 2, Chapter 3 level of violence.
Feels like a Blumhouse movie in some points.
Yeah. I mean, when they're in the tunnels and all the booby traps are going off and Lisa's giggling.
Actually, I did like the third act of the movie. So there's some of the fight. Yeah,
I enjoyed that, and then like it was interesting seeing it with Brad and Darren because they were like, I can't believe how offensive this is, and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, did you just see the other Rambo movies?
I mean,
like to me, I think that in talking about like fucking really offensive stuff, like I found 4
4's crazy,
nauseating and offensive and exploitative.
I think a lot of that, Lisa, comes from the fact that we were much younger and different people when we watched Rambos 2 through 4.
Yeah, I have zero nostalgia attached.
And so like when I watch 3 and I'm just seeing him like tear apart Russians and what have you, like I'm having a total blast and it doesn't bother me whatsoever. And with 4, my jaw is on the ground because of that 50 caliber sequence.
Yeah.
But I will say, rewatching it this time,
where there's
a
just
lot
people,
of the
there's
child death and rape is.
Oh yeah, and the fourth one.
Yeah. Because 2 and 3 are like 80s. Let's have fun with action and violence, and then 4 is like, here's like 5 rape scenes to survive. Oh, okay. But then that caliber happens.
Yeah. I mean, look, when they bring the action, they know how to bring the action. I can have fun with that. But then everything else around this last one, Last Blood,
this one's just so dull.
It is extremely dull. Just the dialogue,
and it looks
like
awful.
I agree. There was a lot of exposition, but it was also really weird what they didn't talk about, like how this relationship began and what is everyone to everybody.
And did he have a niece in the previous films?
No, it's not technically a niece. Like
it's like he was a hired hand at it.
No,
like, what was going on?
I think it was. Maybe this is just Lisa using her imagination to fill in the blanks. But like, I think that he met this family through whatever, and he
through
took
his dad's farm, because he returns to his dad's farm at
Right.
the end, and this is his farm.
Okay.
And he saw this woman dying of cancer, and he was like, I'm going to take this family into my home and make it my own.
I saw it as them being hired hands to the dad.
Yeah.
And the dad dies at some point, and he makes his dad's hired hands his family.
Interesting.
But none of that is said. That is all in my imagination.
It's crazy when he decides to return home in 4. Or was it 5?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
When he returned home and like there are still horses there.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow.
Someone's tended that farm.
Yeah.
Well, it's his
Dad's
dad's.
still
It's his
alive?
dad's. It's in Arizona. Well, somebody was tending that farm. Was his dad alive on that farm? I don't know.
Yeah.
But his name was on the mailbox.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a movie, and hopefully the last of the Rambo.
But I mean, I don't know. It's a bummer because I was really curious to see what it would be like for him back on home soil after being away for so long.
Same.
And just like my grandfather, when he got older, he became a Fox News watcher. And, it happens. It happens to the best of the Gramps.
Yeah, it does, unfortunately. So yeah, that was a movie I saw. Quickly, I'm just going to talk about 2 other things. First, to kind of piggyback off of Fantastic Fest, Primal. We talked about it last week a little bit.
Yes.
For our fistful.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, so the 5th episode dropped. So this past week, they showed basically what we saw at Fantastic Fest, the first 4 episodes, each night on Cartoon Network at midnight this past week. And so there was a 5th episode that premiered this past Friday, so I was really eager to see that. And I'm not going to spoil anything.
Don't you dare.
No,
I haven't seen it yet.
No, I mean, I'll give you the title of it, which you can find on IMDb. It's called Rage of the 8 Men. And
8 men or ape?
Ape.
Ooh.
8 men, Lisa.
I don't know.
Rage of the 8 men.
That's why I had to ask
could
for
be.
clarification.
It could be. They could be like the.
It's on Amazon. Gonna watch tonight.
Nice. Yeah, I'll be definitely curious to get your thoughts, Brad, because I know like when we watched it at Fantastic Fest, we both just were raving about this. We loved it, and it's brutal. It's exhilarating. It's very somber. It's beautiful. There's so many ways I could describe this last episode, but from everything that we saw at Fantastic Fest and those other 4 episodes, really getting connected to the character of Spear and Fang, you really do have an emotional connection with these characters at the end with this final episode that you really you find yourself really caring about them and caring about what happens to them.
The 5 episodes cost $12.99.
Oh.
And I have purchased them.
Oh, damn. Already.
Yeah. Watch now. Excuse me, guys. I got something else to do.
So, yeah, I thought it was just, I mean, again, I talk about Genndy?
I say Genndy, but I have no idea.
Okay. Genndy Tartakovsky, huge fan because I'm a huge Samurai Jack fan. That's one of my fandoms, and people know him, like you say, from Clone Wars. This was just stellar, what he was able to do with this.
So the 5th one, like what we talked about was how those first 4 episodes felt like one single story.
Mm-hmm.
Does this feel like it ends that story, or does this feel like a conclusion, or is it like another episode of what we saw?
It feels like a conclusion.
Oh, man. I'm watching them all tonight.
Yeah, oh man, I'm gonna leave it at that.
I mean, is it on Letterboxd? Can I put it on my dorkies yet?
Man, I want to so bad, but I can't. It's not on there.
Oh, Letterboxd, get your shit together.
I know they got other miniseries you
They've
can
got
find.
like stand-up specials on that thing.
Yeah. So
I can submit it. Can I submit it?
I'll be curious to hear your thoughts, man. So I'll be back next week and we can talk about it some more after you watch it.
Reviewcast.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Last thing I'm gonna talk about is a lot of people have been talking a lot about Breaking Bad. There is a new film called
What's Breaking Bad?
Breaking Bad's a TV series that came on AMC.
I don't
You don't watch television?
I've never heard of it.
Never heard of Breaking Bad? Walter
That's,
White?
that's where I learned how to melt the body, guys.
Oh, is that the one about the guy who's the danger?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty good show.
He's the one that knocks?
Yeah, he is the one that knocks. Lisa was not a fan of Breaking Bad.
Did you watch it? Have you seen?
I watched the beginning of it.
She quit on it.
I watched a couple of episodes and I was like, too sad.
It's great though.
It is.
I missed it. I got to watch El Camino.
Yeah, and I wanted to go back and rewatch it, and I may still go back and rewatch. It's so much television, but I want to go back and rewatch Breaking Bad because it is a great show. It did take a while for me to get into it because I think it took me like a year, maybe 2, to get through like the first season.
Same.
But then once I got going, man, I was hooked.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the best shows
That third
ever.
season, that's what did it for me.
Oh yeah, when Gus Fring is introduced.
Yeah.
That. Whew, man. That and the second half of that 5th season, how that ends. So yeah, leading up to that, and again, no spoilers because it just premiered on Netflix. But this basically feels more like an epilogue to Jesse's story, and it's tension filled because this is basically him. Trying to get out of Dodge. He's on the run to try to get out of New Mexico. And it's just 2 hours of... It deals with flashbacks. So I won't spoil anything about that, but it deals a lot with flashbacks. But I think it progresses the story because you kind of fill in some of the gaps that people had questions about during the series, but it also kind of moves the story along and really just focuses on Jesse's character. But it's good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. So El Camino is on Netflix now. If you're a Breaking Bad fan, it's not going to. A lot of people talked about, is it going to ruin the show, this movie? But it's a companion piece, and I don't know if it's a movie that was necessary.
Well, here's my question.
Yeah.
If you rewatch Breaking Bad, do you watch this at the end also? Is it required in your rewatch?
No.
It's not required.
It's not required.
But would Brian Young rewatch it in his rewatch?
Yeah, I would. Because I think it would add a lot to it. And that's why I really wanted to rewatch the show.
Interesting.
But I think it adds a lot, specifically with Jesse's character and how, especially how his character, the shit that he went through in season 5 and coming out from that. Yeah, it's good, man. It's a great conclusion. As the show was a good conclusion for Walter White's character, this is a great conclusion for Jesse's character.
All right.
So yeah, I give a thumbs up to that.
Breaking Bad lost me when a teacher had a hobby. I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Teachers don't have hobbies?
No, they don't have time, and they're too broken as human beings to cook meth. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what it's about? Okay, good. Okay, good.
I mean, I can agree. Walter White is broken, but he found time.
He found time.
He found time.
Do you know what? I admire it. I admire it.
There you go. There you go. Something to aspire to. Maybe not. So yeah, that is all of our weeks in dorks. We will be back in just a little bit to talk about our review cast, which is Gemini Man.
Gemini Man. Gemini Man.
We are retitling this movie Gemini Man. No, I don't want to offend anybody, but
Too late.
It is so hard for me to say Gemini Man.
Just
There
say
you go.
Gem and the holograms.
Thank
there
you,
you
Gemini
go.
Man.
There you
But
go.
instead of holograms, it's clones.
It's so weird. I've got this mental block every time I go to say it. I say the other
It
thing.
is quite all right. So we will be back with our review in just a moment.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the Wife Dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we're back. And so this week, our review cast is Gemini Man, starring Will Smith, Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
And Will Smith?
Clive Owen.
Benedict
Wong. I have the IMDb open.
Okay. Yeah.
Douglas Hodge.
Dougie Hodge.
And a full list of characters in Ang Lee's latest technical extravaganza. Brad, I know you're here. The honorable tech dork, as he likes to be called at times, is not here.
He's not here.
So I was, you knew if he was here, he was going to talk about the 60 frames and the presentation.
But it feels like, talking off mic, Brad might be waxing.
I mean,
poetic
I saw
about
it both ways. So Darren, Zach, and I on Thursday night went to Tyson's Corner to see it in 60 frames per second.
Okay.
I mean,
3D?
3D.
Okay.
It was shot 120 frames per second 4K, which cannot be projected in the world.
No.
There is no projector that can do it.
Yeah.
And there are only 14 theaters in the country that can do it at 2K. So the closest theater to us that can that's projecting the movie in 120 frames per second at 2K is White Marsh 16 in Baltimore. It's an hour and 25-minute drive.
Really?
I was contemplating it. I'm still contemplating it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let's talk the technical stuff real quick, and then we can move into what the actual movie is.
Yeah.
So seeing it 60 frames per second, 3D, 2K at Tyson's versus seeing it this afternoon with Lisa in 24 frames per second. 24 frames per second is what all movies look like. Modern audiences, that's what they know. 60 frames per second, a few films have been shown that way in recent memory. The Hobbit films, Peter Jackson's Hobbit movies, and Ang Lee did Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk.
Yeah.
And I saw both of those in 60 frames per second. And people dismiss it as, motion smoothing for the theatrical experience.
Yeah.
When I spoke to Douglas Trumbull, who was the special effects supervisor on 2001: A Space Odyssey and Star Trek: The Motion Picture earlier this year, he fell down this rabbit hole of depression about the theatrical experience and how it's dwindling. And when I asked him, well, what can we do to save the theatrical experience? He said we could all go see Gemini Man. God damn it.
It's all right.
Gemini Man. We could all go see Gemini Man in 120 frames per second, 2K.
Okay.
Again, there's only 14 theaters. So he really put a lot of energy and emphasis on this technology radicalizing the experience in the theater and making it different than what you can see at home and on your iPhone and all those things.
Okay.
So I was very curious to see Gemini Man. God damn it, I cannot say that in a natural way. And I gotta say, watching it in 60 frames per second, I thought this was certainly the best version of this technology that I have experienced so far.
Okay.
And from a 3D point of view, when James Cameron was talking about Avatar and the experiential experience, just living in the world, feeling like you're on the stage with the characters, I felt it for the first time. I experienced a weird sensation where I felt like I could reach out and grab the Bloody Marys off of their table.
Wow.
And I could see just that short distance between every Bloody Mary on that table in Budapest, right? While they're all hanging out in the sauna. And for the whole movie, I felt that way. It felt like a stage play. It felt like going down to the Smithsonian, and not the Smithsonian. You don't
And
watch
looking at
plays
dioramas.
Yeah, it did. It felt like going to the Smithsonian, to the Building Museum, and looking at those dioramas, or going to, what the fuck is a theater in D.C. that I'm blanking on?
The Ford Theater?
Ford Theater,
Oh,
where Lincoln got his brains blown out. Like, it felt like going to see a play, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm having a meltdown this conversation.
It's all right.
It felt like watching a play in a lot of ways. Like the sheen was removed
from that, yeah.
And you could then counter that with, well, is that what I want from my movies? And maybe not. I'm struggling with that personally.
Yeah.
What do I want out of a theatrical experience? Do I want all my movies to look this way? I don't know. However, comparing the action scenes in 60 frames per second to 24 frames per second, 60 frames destroyed the 24.
And that's what I was thinking, because I mean, we'll get into our good, bad, and the ugly, but watching the film and seeing the action sequences, it felt like Ang Lee was really trying to create these sequences to be shot and to be presented in 60 frames per second.
There are a lot of digital doubles in this movie, and like digital stunt doubles, like you see in Spider-Man and all those, like all the Marvel movies, right? They're trying to do that with Will Smith, and in 24 frames per second, I don't think they sold a lot of those digital doubles. Oof. But in 60 frames per second, the action scene in Cartagena when they're on the motorcycles, it was amazing in 60 frames per second. There's a shot where the camera is stuck behind Will Smith, old Will Smith, on his motorbike,
as he's
and he goes down the alleyway.
Yeah.
And the frame becomes this claustrophobic corridor, and in 60 frames per second, like my heart was racing.
Yeah.
24 frames per second, I was like, that's a nice CG shot.
Yeah, and watching it, I was thinking about, because I mean, seeing it in 24 is fine because that's the way our eye is trained and that's the way we watch all movies. So I try not to have that in the back of my mind, and I felt like it could have been a distraction for me, and I could just kind of focus on the movie if it's good or not, and we'll get into that. But watching those action sequences did make me think like, oh shit, man, I would love to see this in 60 frames because of the way that they were constructed and how Ang Lee was moving the camera around in certain angles. There was a shot on the motorcycle where it was like a POV shot where you see him reloading his gun while he's on the motorcycle.
All that stuff is great in 60 frames.
Yeah, so I can just imagine what he was going for.
But then watching it in 24, it feels very artificial.
Yeah.
And it looks, a lot of that stuff looks like computer doubles.
And I think that's what Ang Lee said in the interview. He said with the 60 frames, he was trying to take that, I guess, that artifice out of there where you can look at old Will Smith and young Will Smith and you really wouldn't be able to see the difference between the two.
You can still see the difference,
you
especially in that last scene.
Oh, the last scene.
Like, did they run out of money?
Yeah.
That was my joke.
Yes, and I stole it because as your husband, I own all your jokes. Sorry.
Well,
Lisa.
actually, let's get into the good, the bad, the ugly.
Lisa's literally
I literally
mad at me.
am upset.
I'm sorry.
Damn.
I'm sorry.
He's a real asshole.
I don't want to get.
I just get excited. I'm just excited, and I just
About all the clever shit I say.
Yeah,
Me too.
Yeah.
I need to learn to button my lip when I'm talking movies with Brad.
Oh, don't give
I'll
away
steal all your ideas.
Don't give away your jokes.
Yeah.
But let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I guess Lisa, we'll start with you. So what?
Ooh, I get to go first.
Yeah, you know, it's just that Darren messed up the rotation, man.
I know.
My thoughts and prayers with him.
Yes. So Lisa, what was some of the good that you liked about this?
Obviously, Will Smith is amazing. I want to see him in all of the things.
Yeah.
And playing all of the characters. I don't mind. I want to talk about Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Okay.
I love her and everything. Of course, she'll always be Ramona Flowers to me.
Always.
I think of her from Sky High. That was the first time I ever saw it.
I don't know if I've ever seen
I think that was her first film.
Well, Sky High is great.
Yeah.
Good Kurt Russell.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell.
Okay. But I like the fact that she is a super capable agent, like a DIA agent. I enjoyed her hand-on-hand combat scenes, particularly the one at the marina.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
And we are full spoiler territory.
Yes,
now.
we
Yeah,
are.
of course.
Yeah.
This is a review cast.
Yeah, I know. Just making sure for our new listeners who came in just for the Gemini Man. God.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all
damn
right.
it. Gemini Man.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome. Yeah, I guess that's my good.
But that action scene where she then like busts that dude's teeth out.
Yeah, I love that. When she handed Will Smith teeth, I was like, ooh, that's fun.
Yes. Yeah. No, she showed herself to be very capable in all aspects of the film. Even though Will Smith did kind of catch on to her at the marina.
That whole conversation, that's in my bad.
What the conversation?
Where he's like, you know.
Oh, my entire bad is going to be all of the flirting. We will get to the. It was so awful.
Yeah.
The logic of that scene, reveals that she is a DIA agent.
Yeah. No, don't accept the weird man's date. Like, don't.
DIA.
Yeah.
She's a DIA.
So that's is that?
And then he had flowers. The whole thing. Was
We're not in
weird.
the bad yet.
Yeah, you brought it up. I like Benedict Wong.
Yeah,
he's great in everything. I love him.
I thought that he was going to be a sidekick character. I thought that they added a lot of dimension to him, even in like the short time we saw him. Like, what's his story? He has a super huge house. He can fly all kinds of planes. Where did he get that plane? We don't know.
We don't.
I'm curious. That's it, I guess.
That's your entire good?
Yeah, I think so. I'll interrupt your turn.
Okay, good. That's what I ask. For you to interrupt me, forgive me.
So, Brad, what do you have for your good?
I mean, I think a lot of the action is interesting. And even the stuff that doesn't quite work or is not effectively sold in 24 frames per second, 24 frames per second, craft wise or design wise, I like a lot of the action scenes and the set pieces. The Cartagena motorcycle sequence is phenomenal. The final battle where Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Will Smith go back to back with those machine guns. Like, I wish that was longer.
Me too.
She gets caught in the leg with a bullet a little too quickly, but I love that shot of her where he's dragging her across the street and she's still spraying bullets at everyone.
That was great. Yeah. I liked when they ran out of bullets and
it was like axe time and hammer time. Dude, don't tease us with axe time and hammer time and then not deliver.
I know.
But I did like the shooting, the gas tanks, like getting resourceful and MacGyver-y.
Yeah, like she was badass.
Yes.
And the final battle, when it's revealed, again, full spoiler time, that this is not a Gemini Man movie, but a Trilogy Man movie, and the Will Smith ninja shows up.
Yeah.
Like, when he shows up and he is almost a supernatural force of violence, I love that. But again, it's over. Like, he shows up, gets his ass kicked.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, it happens way too quickly.
Like, introduced the Trilogy Man way earlier, and then the final film, like the final 15 minutes, army of Will Smiths.
That was also going to be in my bad. There was not enough Will Smith.
Yeah, but it felt like that was the way the film was headed.
Yeah.
Was that it was what Clive Owen was doing was trying to build an army of this character. Yeah. So
I ventured into my bad a little bit. But like I loved Ninja Will Smith, the third one. I liked a lot of the action, the way it was designed. The chemistry, to Lisa's point, with Will Smith and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, they were fun to watch. I was very happy that they did not become a sexual item, even if there is all this weird flirtation nonsense that's going on.
I would have enjoyed it more if they were just super compatible coworkers and partners.
Right.
Yeah, and it felt like the movie didn't know exactly. Well, I don't want to get into the bad, but I mean, just to kind of give a I don't want to bury the lead, but it did feel a little bit like they didn't know how they wanted to use these two characters.
Like they were writing it as they were going.
Yeah, it felt like, okay, are they going to make them love interest? But then ultimately they don't. But it felt like you were saying, the flirting in the beginning.
Like, like we all know that Will Smith is still sexy. Like, you can be coworkers.
But I also liked how it was a globe hopping movie. I liked that we went to Colombia. I liked that we went to Hungary.
Changes the setting,
Georgia. I thought that had that international man of mystery quality that I like in my spy movies. And then just there was like singular shots that I loved, and again they looked amazing in 60 frames, but. Early on in the movie with the train, actually the title card.
Yes.
When the title card comes up and it says Gemini Man, and you have the camera pointing upwards at this canvas of this train station in 3D in 60 frames. That title card comes up. You're like, whoa,
Okay.
look at this crazy piece of art.
Yeah.
And then it pans down and it's a train station.
Yeah.
Watching it 24 frames per second, you're like, what's this white blob?
Yeah, I thought it was cloth at first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like he constructs this thing to be this, technical wizardry. And because of where we are with our theatrical experience right now, he cannot deliver it and ends up doing a disservice to it.
And that was my problem. Again, I don't know if
We're
back.
venturing.
And that's not to the fault of Ang Lee. I mean, I like the fact that he tries to push technology, but it's a simple fact that, like you were saying, there's only 14 theaters in the country that could present it in the way that he intended.
And actually, close to the way he intended. There are 0 theaters that can do it the way he intended.
Exactly. And I just don't understand. I mean, why go that route if you know that these theaters don't have the capabilities of being able to show it that way?
And let's be honest, this movie is super middle of the road.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it comes down to. Is he's compensating for.
Yeah.
Because even just his regular direction of when you're watching 2 people sit and have a conversation, it is literally the least interesting shot by shot thing. I think that. Maybe it's a bogged down situation or maybe a lack of creativity situation.
But I imagine this technology given to a film like The Raid, right? My go-to action film.
Okay.
Your mind would explode. You might not be able to actually achieve what Gareth Evans was achieving in that because of the speed. But But give me a script that super kicks ass with this technology. Especially since you can't present it the way you want. So what you have, what everyone is left with in all the malls across America, better also be good.
Yeah.
And it's so blah.
Yeah. Well, let me...
let him do his good.
I mean, actually, you already covered it, so I'm not going to be long. Really, it was... the only thing that really appealed to me about this movie were the action sequences. And even with that, I had some issues with the action sequences that I'll talk to once we get around to the bad. But the sequence in Cartagena that you were talking about, I really enjoyed that a lot. I enjoyed the end as well. And I like the opening. I like the opening with him sniping the guy on the train. And
there's that fisheye lens. That was the shot I was talking about.
Yeah.
The fisheye lens shot was cool.
But it was weird. When you think about the fisheye lens shot within the context of the rest of the film, what was that shot doing in there?
What it's doing there is in 60 frames per second, it goes, whoa!
Yeah. So I like that, and I like the precision of how he goes about to get his target, where he dials in on his target, but because he has to factor in the wind velocity and also the train moving and how he has to kind of lead the bullet. I thought all that stuff was fascinating and really kind of informs you of his character as well. So I like that opening sequence. That's much it.
Okay.
So let's. I think we've already kind of started it, but Lisa, what are some of your bad?
Some of my bad. There was a lot of chemistry between Will Smith and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. There was no sexual chemistry between them, and all of the playing at flirtation was just bizarre and awkward and off-putting to me.
I would say it starts with poorly written flirtation.
Oh, positively. I'm not blaming them for any kind of lack of performance. It was just
what is going on?
Though bringing flowers to a casual date is a way old man move.
But talk about that scene. Talk about how you were feeling when we're introduced to Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character and how that scene played out.
The idea that let's say she is just a girl working at the marina, or she's a person that's really good at pretending to be the girl who works at the marina.
Yeah.
A strange person enters your personal workspace where he is not supposed to be.
Goes behind the desk.
Starts asking super invasive questions, including some, red flags of when do you get off of work? When I'm going to murder you. Where do you live?
Yeah.
And also calling her a liar.
Yeah,
from
calling
the jump.
her a liar from the jump. And for her, after that conversation, her going yes, I'll meet you somewhere was just ridiculous. And made zero sense.
Except she's DIA, Lisa. Of course she has to meet him.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Because she's following him.
But if she was following him, there's no incentive. Let's
if
say
she wanted to keep her cover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was comfortable blowing her cover.
Yeah, she should not have agreed, because clearly anybody who would agree to that is a spy of some kind.
I was crawling.
Yeah.
I was crawling in my seat during that scene. And then, the scene, where he's going, well, I'm going to use you as bait for my young clone because I know what kind of women he's into. That's gross and not necessary considering that his clone knows that she is with him. So,
and then you have, the strip scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just felt gratuitous.
And
for a PG-13 movie,
I understand the strip scene within the context of, this is a young guy, a virgin. And I thought very funny, I liked her bristling at the use of the word ma'am, because I also, I hate being called ma'am. I hate it.
Especially by her husband. She does not like
it. He never calls me ma'am. He knows better about some things.
Ma'am, can I get to my point?
Which is your point?
No.
The point where you go fuck yourself? Yes, you may.
Yay.
Also, I was intrigued by the idea of the second Will Smith, Jr.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of Jr. being a control for a greater experiment. And when we, it goes back to there's just not enough Will Smiths. If he's building an army, there has to be, if Junior is the control, there's got to be all kinds of other circumstances where this mastermind guy, Clive Owen, is going well, I'm going to try fatherly love. I'm going to try removing the genes of pain and fear. I'm going to try what if gills? What if some kind of underwater situation? So to me, that was interesting, and then just kind of dropped. And then they're the DIA guy going there's just no more. All ends are tied up.
Yeah. Very pat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Was there anything else? I think Clive Owen as the evil mastermind. I found him very, very bland.
What about the joke I stole from you about the last scene?
Oh, I was going to use that in my ugly.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I did have one more good, but I was.
What is it? Just go back and say.
Well, real quick. Also, I like the scene when they're down the catacombs and
Yes.
he's talking to Junior, and to me, it was that idea of talking to your younger self. Will Smith now having all this experience and going through the things that he's gone through, and now him trying to school his younger self, and just that idea of because sometimes we say that all the time, man, if I could just go back and tell my younger self these things to you do this, do that, take advantage of this opportunity. And the way that scene, the way what he was saying to him, it just kind of reminded me of that idea of your older self trying to school your younger self. And I like that aspect of it.
In the catacomb scene, though, she was also wearing some kind of microphone device in her teeth.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Would that work?
I've seen it in other movies.
Because to me, acoustically, your voice comes together outside, it's inside of your articulators.
I don't know.
So,
maybe it'll sound like if you're underwater. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Something like that.
It worked. That's all we know because we saw it work.
Yeah, that's true. Who am I, Darren?
It's okay to be nitpicky. We're not gonna go back to Far From Home, but
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, he had a hover suit. That's all I'm saying.
So Brad, what are some of your bad?
I mean, I've talked about them, a lot of them already, but this script has been bouncing around Hollywood since the late 90s. Yeah. The movie kicks off and it's a Jerry Bruckheimer film, and it feels like a movie that would have followed up John Woo's Face Off, right?
Yeah, it definitely one of those things that has a high concept.
Yeah,
but yeah,
but it feels also rooted in the sensibilities of the 90s, and it is dated immediately.
Absolutely.
So it was a weird script to navigate. like just to see like the flirtation scenes and the very basic philosophical issues that it tries to broach in its 90s action film dressing.
Yeah.
I appreciate some of that effort, and I do like the scene in the catacombs where you get to talk to your younger self, where Will Smith goes like, I know you're afraid of drowning, and you got bees, and you're a virgin, and you have the doubts and the dream, the nightmares, where people are screaming, and it just feels old.
It feels very old,
like an old man bringing flowers to his non-date.
Yeah.
And then I think like for every action scene that was cool, there are moments even within that action scene that are lame. That the final fight is, some of it was A-okay, real rad stuff. And then a guy pops up with a Gatling gun from his van, and you're like, this is going to be amazing. This scene is going to go off the hook. And it is the most boring use of a Gatling gun in a movie ever.
Yeah.
I could not believe how dull that scene looked.
But the guy with the Gatling gun was like wearing this cool mask, and he had like
the eyeliner
that blacked out underneath his eyes. I was like, is that another Smith?
Well, like when he pops up, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then okay.
Yeah.
Chewbacca?
Slow motion. Yeah, that was Chewbacca fired his Gatling gun, his bowcaster Gatling gun. But yeah, I guess that's all that bad.
Yeah, I kind of agree with both your points as far as the bad. I thought the script was atrocious. I was
embarrassing,
very embarrassing. I talked a little bit about my Weekend Dork about Last Blood and that script, and this one specifically more so with the dialogue between, like you were saying, the chemistry between characters. And thank God for Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Will Smith, because they have to carry this film, and they do what they can.
But they deliver some garbage dialogue.
I would love to see her in another action film. I enjoyed watching her do action.
Yeah, me too. I really did. I wish they had better material to work with. The action sequences I enjoyed, but there was something that really bothered me in the first third of this film, watching like the one at the docks, where
it was like day for night. Like, what is that?
It did feel that way. Also, they cut away from the action, which it's not a huge issue, but kind of annoying. And I know it's a PG-13 movie, so we're not going to see her knock somebody's teeth out. But
that doesn't bother me necessarily, that cut.
Yeah.
But like when she's wrestling with that dude in the shack, like the way that is blocked, very strange.
Yeah, it just felt like they just didn't want to show the action, because like even like his friend on the boat, when they get assassinated on the boat.
Oh yeah, Jack or whatever his name is.
Yeah, and you don't see it; you just see it from underwater with the bodies being dumped in.
I'll tell you what though, in 60 frames per second, that transition when the bodies go in and it transitions to his memory of his dad pushing him out into the water.
Okay,
like that transition looked gorgeous.
Really. Nice.
24 frames per second looked like hot garbage.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Like some of that stuff just really didn't work for me. I guess that's really all the bad I can think of. I'm pretty sure there's more, but yeah, the movie just felt bland. It just felt mediocre. Like you said, it felt like a script from the 90s, where high concept, but definitely rooted in those 90s sensibilities. But then I'm thinking to myself, like, if a movie has been batting around Hollywood for this long, why make it at this point? Especially like if you're not going to try to update it for...
Because cloning technology, the cloning of humans, like, is, I think, a fun and interesting concept. And there have been breakthroughs made since then.
The concept, but as far as the actual script, like, it just felt like they actually took the script that they had. But
if you're going to infuse a 90s idea of it being like this social commentary, there's a lot has happened in DNA technology since Dolly the sheep.
Yeah, and I would love to see this film done.
And the conversation around privatized military with Gemini. Like there's stuff to be said about these concepts.
Yeah, there is. It's just not in this movie. No. So yeah, let's get into some of the ugly. Lisa, what do you have for your ugly?
The final scene, we've already talked about it. Like when we see him from across the campus at
It's
the
like
end
they
of the
ran
movie,
out of money.
it's like they ran out of money. Like, he looked like a Na'vi. Like, he looked straight out of Avatar.
Yeah.
Where it was breathtakingly
Yeah.
shocking.
It looks like a video game.
Like
it
a
looks
cutscene.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit with your cutscene.
Yeah. I don't know what. And I don't know if part of that is due to the fact that we see a lot of Junior in
the
night
dark.
Yes, scenes
yes.
outside of like the Cartagena action sequences, but he has a hat and glasses on and stuff like that. But that scene, I mean, they must have put most of the money in that particular scene because that was during the daytime. I mean, I thought that scene looked good and Junior looked good in that scene. But outside of that, everything they could mask it in the nighttime and in the dark. But that last scene.
It was I was in the uncanny valley and it felt bad.
There were lots of moments throughout the movie with them by each other or fighting each other where you're like, ooh, that doesn't quite work. That doesn't quite work. That doesn't quite work. But then you get to this scene where they're having like a joking, like father-son kind of conversation side by side in bright daylight. And it's not just that the CG doesn't work, but the vocal performance matched to that CG also was uncomfortable.
And I felt that way throughout the whole movie. That's something else I wanted to bring up. Like the voice for Junior, it felt like you could hear Will Smith in a booth. ADR and all of those lines. But it just did not feel natural.
Especially that last scene. Because there's this one shot in the final scene where he turns to Will Smith, old Will Smith and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and says, like, guys, I got to make my own mistakes. And, like, it's an over the shoulder, and you don't see Junior's face. You just see his lower jaw moving a little bit, and it does not match the dialogue.
Oh, my God. I didn't even catch that.
It's just like, like, oh.
It was, I mean,
But it's definitely better than Tron Legacy with young Jeff Bridges.
Oh yeah, and that was almost 10 years ago. So yeah, they've come a long way.
And they're gonna get there with that VR camera.
There you go. So Brad, what do you have for your ugly?
What do I have for my ugly? Gosh, what more could I possibly add to this conversation? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Benedict Wong getting blown up in like a super lame way.
That disappointed me.
Like,
somebody had to go. They wanted to keep the three characters.
Yeah, the one Asian sidekick character, he's got to go. So I guess that'll be my ugly. I really wanted that Will Smith army. It would have been great to have had Benedict Wong there with Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Junior and old Will Smith fighting 20 Will Smiths.
Oh man, yeah. I thought that's where we were headed, but
if you want that though, go watch Resident Evil Extinction or Afterlife, the one after that one, where you get the multiple Mila Jovoviches.
Oh yeah.
They all blow up in the first act, but whatever.
I guess for my ugly, not much. The only thing I could think of is just the way the film looks. It looks extremely flat at times, and bad cinematography, and maybe that's
part of the technology.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. As part of the technology, you can't get extremely like creative with your compositions and stuff like that.
But that's the thing, right? So like if you only have 14 theaters that can do it justice and maybe 50 theaters that can do 60 frames per second, then what you're doing is you're dumping this movie and you are doing a tremendous disservice to your own piece of art.
Exactly.
So if we can't do it for the masses, then maybe we shouldn't do it. But maybe the work that they're doing on this gets them to the next hump, right? Like I don't know. Maybe this is we're going to look back on Gemini Man as a significant work of art technologically.
Possibly. I mean, when you think of movies like you talking about the conversation you had with the cinematographers for Lion King, and with this technology and how they're trying to move it forward, maybe the movie theaters will start implementing or at least refitting at least one theater in their houses to be able to show movies in that type of presentation.
Lion King, also another really bland film.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
Maybe that's just the cost of overcoming a technological hump.
And then other technical aspect that was much, much better in IMAX 3D was the sound. Like
Okay.
at the end when Mary Elizabeth Winstead's being dragged and she's blasting those dudes in IMAX, like you can feel the gunshots in your chest. And then, in the regular theater,
It's just
I know.
another action movie.
Yeah.
So sound, picture quality, those are important, Douglas Trumbull. You do need to pursue it.
They are. So those are our thoughts on Gemini Man, starring Will Smith. So check it out if you're curious. Like I said, Letterboxd, I gave it 2.5 stars, straight down the middle. Things I like. There's a lot of things that just don't work. But if you're curious about the technology, it's got some cool action sequences. Check it out. So that is going to do it for us. You guys know when I host, let's promote our network. Let's see here. I got the website up. Remember, guys, we have a website, inthemoutofdarkness.com. It's a one-stop shop for everything. You get all our podcast feeds. You can learn about all of us through our profiles and links to our social medias. We have articles up there, videos from a YouTube page. But let's get to comic book couples counseling. I see that you guys had episode 32, Sex Criminals Volume 5. That's up now.
Yeah.
That was our last Sex Criminals episode. So if you want to binge listen and binge read Sex Criminals, they actually just announced that Sex Criminals Volume 6 will be coming out right around the corner.
Yeah, in January.
So there's not a better time. But now we're going to be moving on to a new couple and a new love guru. So our couple for our next round is Brad.
It's Swamp Thing, Alec Holland, and Abigail Arcane, Lisa.
Yes.
Okay.
And then our love guru is Common. He wrote a self-help love book / memoir that I forget the title of because I haven't started reading it yet.
Okay, I do remember he did. Maybe that's the most recent book that he just had out.
No, he has another book.
He does.
That came out.
He's got a couple. Common's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur.
I like Common. Okay, that should be interesting.
It will be interesting.
Okay,
looking forward to recording those episodes.
All right, definitely check.
Do not Google Common books because it will not bring a list up of Common's books.
So everybody, look out for that episode, and remember to follow them on Twitter at CBCC Podcast on Twitter. Also, we have Bill and Claire's Excellent Adventures. I know that Bill is introducing Claire to a lot of the classic Universal monsters. The last episode he has up is The Invisible Man.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to see when you introduce your children to like horror films and especially older horror films. But I mean, Claire, she has a very...
She's a
I would
well-seasoned.
certainly recommend listening to the Frankenstein episode that kicks off Operational... No, what the hell is he calling it? Operation Universal Horror, I think is what he says.
Yes.
That episode is fantastic and, proves that Claire's a cool girl.
Yeah.
And I have not listened to the Invisible Man episode yet, but I will.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else they drop soon. So look out for them, and remember, follow Billy at WB on Twitter and Instagram. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, but Chatcast, what we have on deck for Chatcast?
So we just dropped our first episode at a Fantastic Fest. That was a 15-minute conversation with Bong Joon-ho about Parasite, maybe the greatest film of the year. Really great movie. Yeah. Bong Joon-ho is a master filmmaker, and it is an honor to have him on our measly little podcast. So check that episode out. This week we'll be dropping our Takashi Miike episode.
What?
That's nuts. We're going to have Tom Atkins from Halloween 3 and Night of the Creeps on to talk about his new horror film, Trick. We've got Joe Kelly from I Kill Giants coming on. And then we're going to continue on with the Fantastic Fest chats. Tim Robbins is coming.
Oh, man. That's crazy, man. Like you say, because of Fantastic Fest, we have content for Chatcast through the end of the year.
It's crazy. And we're going to have, we have to mention, Brian, Full Metal Modine Weekend.
Yes.
Happening at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia on November 1st through November 3rd. Matthew Modine is coming to the Alamo, and he is going to be hosting Q&As for 9 of his films, including Full Metal Jacket, Vision Quest, Cutthroat Island.
You heard it here.
Married to the Mob, Memphis Belle. And we're going to be taking part in those Q&As, and Matthew Modine will be on the podcast.
That's awesome.
Crazy, man.
That's crazy. Yeah, so make sure you follow REVIEWcast on social media. You should be following us anyway, but specifically also during Matthew Modine, so you'll get all of that content. So yeah, let's go ahead and sign off. Lisa, we can find you at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd and Twitter.
You're going to ask me what I'm looking forward to, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Darren does do that. What are you looking forward to, Lisa?
I don't know. Go to somebody else.
Could it be Maleficent, Mistress of Evil?
No.
What about Zombieland Double Tap?
No.
Well, Jojo Rabbit is opening in limited release.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
Okay, all right, okay.
Me too. I'm excited for that movie. One of the best of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And I definitely want to see it again. So yeah, and also, well, let's do this first. Brad, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to finishing Primal. That's my top priority. I got to watch the rest of Primal.
Oh, man. I'm pretty sure you're going to do that after we finish recording,
Yeah.
right?
And this week at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, there's even more events. You know, it's the 10th anniversary of the theater, and Andy has gone out and found all kinds of crazy guests. So not just Joe Kelly and Matthew Modine, but Tuesday night, Joe Bob Briggs is going to be there doing a presentation about how rednecks saved Hollywood.
Okay.
Andre Gower, the star of the Monster Squad and the director of Wolfman's Got Nards, is going to be there Wednesday night showing his movie with producer Henry McDomas. I'm having a problem with pronunciations. He's H. Dilla on Twitter. And so like that's going on, and then Baltimore Comic Con is coming this weekend too.
That's right.
I got to be there.
Oh man, you're gonna have a busy week, man.
It's nuts.
I know, and you can find that guy at Mouth Dork on all social medias. Darren Smith, who isn't here, our normal host, he is in trend. Hopefully, at this point, it is Friday, so I'm assuming. Well, no, it's not.
It's not.
Sorry,
it's Monday.
Peek behind the curtain. Sorry. Hopefully, though, he is home by now. Make sure you follow him at the Disco Dork on all social medias.
Yes, send your thoughts and prayers to at the Disco Dork.
Send your thoughts and prayers to him that he made it home safely, and I'm pretty sure he did. He'll appreciate that.
Oh man, he better. He better. We're gonna feel real bad.
I'm looking forward to Zombieland. I've talked about this before. I'm supposed to be doing the double feature with Darren. But because of my new job situation, I may miss. You know what? I'm gonna still try to make it out, but I may miss the first half of the first movie, which is fine. I've seen the movie a million times, but I'm looking forward to Double Tap.
You got your tickets for it already?
Yeah, it's Wednesday.
You should go.
Yeah,
even if you miss like the first 30 minutes.
Yeah. I think
you'll catch
I'm
the Bill Murray stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. So I'm excited for that. And you can follow me at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, Brian William Young on Facebook, and that's going to do it for us, guys. And we will see you all next week here at It Mod. So until next time.